Welcome back to Rhythm Method Error. Today we're going to be talking about cultural taboo, ritual sacrifices, and covenants. I've always had questions about what motivates rituals. At a pretty young age, I really started questioning why people do the things we do, and more importantly, why we just accept this weird shit as the normal way we do things. Everything and anything looked at objectively gets pretty strange. You take a heroic dose of sacramental compounds and look at things like a child again, and it's ridiculous what we just accept as normal. Sometimes upon deeper reflection, shit that just seems ordinary takes on an air of elegance. I'm not even kidding. I stared at a cockroach for what seemed like ages the other night on my porch. The mundane becomes magnificent, the profane becomes sacred. I used to like to walk around downtown and look at architecture. I was awestruck by the way that buildings would cast shadow and reflect solar light at the sunrise and sunset. The details, they can be hypnotizing. When I see art though, architecture, the workings of human hands, I look at my stupid self and think something greater than I am built this shit. But then I figured out how they did it. Then I started digging into how humans developed the ability to build structures like the cathedrals and temples. Ancient architecture is so sophisticated. Some of it, like in the ruins of specific places that aren't as famous as the pyramids in Giza are, they're just as mysterious. It's crazy, fucking astrologically significant shit. What that implies is historically the subject of ridicule, one of the more far-fetched elements of Mormonism. And the reason Mormonism addresses this kind of shit is the reason they are considered by traditional Christian cultures to be so far out there. That kind of architecture. I took a friend from out of town to the Mormon temple, and I showed her the statue of the cosmic Christ, in that round room with the painted ceilings. I pointed out the star system where the Elohim and Jehovah come from. And she was in total disbelief about what Mormons believe. She was absolutely incredulous about their origin story. The cosmic origin, kolob, all that shit. I'm convinced psychedelics had something profound to do with the visions Joseph Smith had. And I suspect he was dosing the first members of his church unbeknownst to them with psilocybin. I think that because I replicated his experiment, in part a thought experiment, and in part by experimenting with sacramental compounds, 5G, 5 grams in silent darkness. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google Terence McKenna heroic dose. Now, don't get the wrong idea. I've never actually done that. I don't think that much is necessary, but what do I know? I haven't done it. I've done a lot, and I've done too much, and I don't think I need to do twice as much more than too much to know what he's talking about. The point is that your eyes are blown wide open and turned 180 degrees into your skull. So you're looking inward toward infinity. You cut everything in half, divide it, fractalize it, multiply it, until you realize how we've come to the point that we have as a species with our advances in technology and science and math and biology. You got the tree of life, okay, but you've also got the tree of knowledge, and that's forbidden. And you know it's forbidden because you don't know anything about it. You might not even know it exists. It doesn't occur to you to even look for it. When you see reality from outside of your programming, it can be difficult, to say the least, okay? I don't actually think they're separate symbols. I think the tree of life is the tree of knowledge, and that's why we've devised a concept of original sin. Because free will is a lie. And if you don't have free will, then sin is a lie. Because you know that you've been lied to and disrespected by your culture, your society. You're encouraged to take pride in shit you had no hand in creating, and truthfully, shit you don't even understand. That facet of your culture is what's keeping you in the rat race, keeping you in the hamster wheel. That's what's keeping you in bondage without chains. Your ignorance is what's keeping you a slave. They knew the day would come when all would be revealed, and so they prophesied it in the Bible. And they tried to scare the piss out of you so that you wouldn't look at it. But the more I understand it, it wasn't out of malevolence. Okay? It's a gatekeeper. It's a rite of passage because you can't handle what is beyond the veil of Isis unless, or rather until, because it's inevitable, you've tempered your soul. And that's not what this video is about, though. This video is about what's hidden in plain sight. And so much is. We look right past it. It's like a film. That film, They Live. It's so perfect for demonstrating how tradition camouflages the absurd in our culture. So let's look at what's weird and let's get real with it. Or let's look at what's real and let's get weird with it, okay? Why do they eat dogs in Vietnam? Why don't they eat beef in India? Why don't they eat bacon in Israel? Why doesn't anyone eat orca or dolphin? You know, we tend to think we don't like to eat sentient creatures. No, I don't. Pigs are smarter than dogs. We eat pigs. Dogs eat their own shit. Pigs eat their own shit too. Some people are into eating shit. You know, depending on how edgy and German your sexual proclivities are. I don't really know why and how certain cultures come up with their superstitions and their taboos. They could come about for a lot of different reasons. My best guess is because animals are creatures of habit, and even more so, we instinctively and intuitively look for patterns. It's a survival mechanism, evolutionarily informed to recognize predator and prey. You know, that Ouroboros shit again. That's my best guess. That's assuming we went from primate to homo in the time frame that doesn't include Göbekli Tepe and the ancient American civilizations Graham Hancock's new book, America Before, is about. Bloodletting, circumcision, and pyramids. Is there a correlation between the two? It would appear so. The Aztec elites, the ruling class, would offer the blood of their soft flesh, the tongue or the penis, to the gods on an altar atop a pyramid in front of the people to demonstrate that their authority was divine. Because the blood of the gods was shed to create humanity, the blood of humanity must be shed in kind to the gods. They were high as fuck on sacramental compounds, by the way. Fucking mushroom. The mushroom. The penis. Communion. The blood would be absorbed into paper and burned as an offering to the sun god. The smoke would rise to be accepted by the gods of the sky. Now, what I know about God is that it's dynamic. It's hermaphroditic. Women aren't required to bloodlet in these cultures. Why? Because their divinity is innate. They already bleed from their genitals. Men see? Like, I think because women give life, or at least deliver it, and that's what historically we knew, is something that men tried to usurp. That they want to control life, and they don't even give life, so they usurp feminine roles. Man fabricated the pattern of language, patterns in the material world. Ma's mad world, Mother Earth. They had an understanding of some major principles of being on this plane. They understood time, set and setting. I can't help but deduce they were operating under some sort of common influence. You know, Saturn. They filleted their foreskins to the extent their penises looked like they had wings or elephant ears. They used jade, shark teeth, and obsidian to carve the flesh of their genitals like the statuettes they would sculpt. And fillet your dick on holy paper and burn the blood-soaked papyrus as an offering to the gods, right? Fertility. It's a ritual of fertility. That's normal, right? Paper, trees, possibly hemp. A plant-based material, planet-based material, planet-based matter, mother, the vessel by which the word is written, transmitted, communicated, communion. You see, the words are symbolized on the paper to create ideas, to transmit knowledge. That's the symbolism behind blood, genitals, plants, fire, smoke. It's elemental. They were conscious of this shit. The ritual symbolized and meant something. Why? Because reality can't be replicated. Absolute reality cannot be artificial. Art attempts to recreate the absolute, but it never lives up to the inspiration. the reality of what inspires it. You see what I mean? No painting or photo of the moon, say, is ever as beautiful as the actual moon at the moment its image was replicated. No art ever lives up to that which inspires it. Inspiration, inspire, spire, spirit, respire, respiration, the breath. When you first learn to meditate, you just watch yourself breathe. That's why the chief gods are always gods of the sky and the wind. If the earth is feminine, then the sky must be masculine, by default. The sun in the sky, the sun, the male child of a woman. It makes me think of when my own mother would sing to me. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. Blah, blah, blah. Her sun shined even when the sun of the world in the sky was obstructed by water in the sky, the rain. Even when the rain, even in the rain, the sun rains. How do I say that without spelling it out? R-A-I-N-S and R-E-I-G-N-S, rains. The sun reigns. Anyway, that's a whole other episode. This actually has something to do with the cosmic order and the recent influx of transgenderism and gay frogs and all that crazy shit that's going on right now. It's actually preordained. It's a sign of the times. Music, also, by the way, is an offering of sacrifice to the gods. When I'm good at making these videos, I'll make one about how music is the preferred medium of the gods. You have to understand, before the recent advent of recording devices, all music was live. It only ever existed in that moment, and it could never be replicated. It went from the vibrations of dead wood, trees, and cat guts, the strings, the frequencies, into the ears, into the heart and mind of people, and disappeared into the sky forever. Like, it was gone. Music was a sonic mandala. Like the Tibetans, they create these ornate mandalas out of sand, and the wind blows it away. Well, the musician creates a sonic mandala out of sound, and the wind also, it disappears. It goes into the ether, never to be experienced again. So it was unique. Music transcends words, and it's the language of love and war. Love actually is war. Anyone who's suffered a broken heart knows that love is brutal. Love is no endeavor for the weak. Don't make no mistake about that. A coward is incapable of exhibiting love. Love is the prerogative of the brave. Love is a battlefield. What's love got to do with it? What's love but a second-hand emotion? What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. No more. No more words. You're telling me you love me, but you're walking away. No more words and no more promises of love. Okay, back to the origins. Alexander and Abraham. The Phoenicians and the Assyrians, the Sumerians, Gilgamesh, Zarathustra, the first Western civilization that academia acknowledges. I think that's bullshit. Maybe they're wrong. Maybe they're lying. I'm in Graham Hancock's camp. Shit just keeps getting older, and the more we learn about history, the more we learn that we've been systematically deceived. Truth and knowledge has been intentionally kept from us. By whom, though? Who knew that wouldn't tell? Who are the conspirators in this great deception of our origin? Who wrote the Bible, and why did they tell us what it tells us? What was the actual motive? Where did these rituals originate from, and what's their purpose or function? These are the questions that lie under the surface of our societal norms, our culture of ritual. Why do we circumcise males? What other cultures do? What is the function or purpose? What did they tell us? What's the truth about it? Because there's a lot of subterfuge in religion. You have to think, for the last 5,000 years, since that shit has been informing empires and civilizations in the West, the vast majority of people were illiterate. What the Bible can tell us, the information held within it, was filtered through the priest class into the minds of the peasants, the soldiers, and the slaves. Knowledge is power, and they effectively kept knowledge out of the hands of the slave class. The Bible specifically is a slave owner's manual. The libraries that were free were raised in the first part of the first millennia. Now, what knowledge we have is hidden. They keep secret knowledge, and it's held in the Vatican. There's probably a lot of hidden occult knowledge in places like Saudi Arabia and Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, Switzerland. Conspiracy theory shit, you know, the basement of the Smithsonian. Fucking Dan Brown, Da Vinci shit. Dude, Israel sent a rocket that just happens to be shaped like a penis to the moon. Its payload was a hard drive disk that contained all of the information and knowledge known to humanity thus far. Why? I started to outline an episode about Israel's moon mission to back up humanity's hard drive, but got distracted. The mission failed. They used a SpaceX rocket and it couldn't stick the landing, so I'm sure they're probably going to try another time. They're going to try to do that again. But, you know, we information. Secular academics like Elaine Pagels deciphered the Nag Hammadi codices and the Dead Sea Scrolls. We got access to it. They hid it away. It was revealed. We'll talk about some of the challenges to the old law that Christianity introduced concerning circumcision in the lost, hidden scriptures from that era, specifically the Gospel of Thomas. Now, the Gospel of Thomas says, in Gospel of Thomas 53, he says, his disciples said to him, is circumcision useful or not? He said to them, if it were useful, their father would beget him from their mother already circumcised. But the true circumcision in the Spirit has proved useful in every way. So, circumcision, what is it and why do we do it? The cutting and removal of the foreskin of the penis. So who does it? Rabbis or obstetricians. How? Scalpel. In rabbis' cases, a fingernail or a sacred blade designed for blood ritual sacrifices. In some orthodoxy of Judaism, the penis blood is sucked out orally by the rabbi. That seems normal, right? If you're a goth that's into bloodletting and have posters of Peter Murphy on your bedroom wall and like to cosplay as Bela Lugosi, fucking vampire eroticism with a Catholic twist, if you understand what I'm saying. It's fucking, I'm sorry, okay? It's fucking bad. It's bad. The Aztecs would smoke the blood of the penis. You may have heard Eddie Bravo talking about that on JRE. When did we start doing it? Unknown, or at least undisclosed. What are the unintended consequences of it? What do we say to ourselves to rationalize it? What are the facts about it? And then, I suppose, the reason you are watching me specifically talk about this shit on my video is what do I think about it? What do I speculate are the real reasons we perform these ritual sacrifices? Now, I've read some articles on the subject, and I've read some books on religion, and I can't exactly remember where I've gleaned certain information. So, I'll just take responsibility for anything that I say, without citation or without sources. But I will also take from Wikipedia, so you can check those sites and sources for yourself, for accuracy and for reliability. The one common characteristic, the one common trait that I found among cultures to circumcise is that they're warrior cultures. They're conquerors. They're imperial. Even when they're tribal, they're imperialistic. There are exceptions, but that's the rule. There are African peoples that circumcise, but it's predominantly known as a Hebrew ritual sacrifice to Yahweh. Now this dude, Peter Remonding, wrote a book titled History of Circumcision in 1891. I haven't read it. Maybe I will give you a book report on it. But according to Remondino, there is no consensus on where the practice originated, or if it was spread from culture to culture, or if it was devised independently. My guess, my speculation, is that it was spread from culture to culture independently. He also believes it was implemented as a way for warriors to emasculate their captured enemy. He claims that warring tribes wouldn't castrate their enemies because that would have been fatal in that era of medicine. But it would emasculate them sufficiently and also serve as a signifier that he was a slave. It would later come to signify the status of the elite. The Egyptian sun god Ra circumcised himself according to the Egyptian Book of the Dead. The Egyptians and their surrounding peoples practiced it. The Aztecs also performed circumcision as a ritual sacrifice among other animal and human sacrifices. If you think the Egyptians and the Jews weren't committing human sacrifice, I think you should broaden your definition of sacrifice, or at least blood sacrifice. Murdered firstborn sons, lamb's blood, painted doors, Abraham and Isaac. There were a lot of different kinds of animal sacrifices in that time, depending on the ion. Okay, so depending on where the constellations were moving, how the planet was moving through the cosmic order, depended on what kinds of animals being sacrificed. So the sacred cow of India likely has something to do with the Brahma in India, that Aryan shit, the age of Taurus. There's a type of bovine called the Brahma bull. It was imported here from India. The Brahma are the elite. That type of bull, I presume, was the sacred of the sacred. The Brahma are linguistically associated with Abraham, or rather the opposite is true. Abraham is another word for the Brahmans, Abrahamans. The Brahmins, the Hindi, were the Taurian golden calf worshippers that we learn about from the Torah. They stopped worshiping the bull because the ion shifted into the age of Aries, the ram. We've gone over this shit in other videos. You know, Moses with the ram horns, all that good shit. So, what about the circumcision thing? When did the Jews begin sacrificing part of their genitals to Yahweh? And more importantly, why? Okay, so Genesis chapter 17 tells us, we learn that Abraham and his relatives and slaves were all circumcised. Jews are commanded by Abraham to circumcise their sons on the 8th day after they're born as a covenant with Yahweh, as a blood sacrifice. Why? Who knows? Fuck knows, man. People speculate that it's for hygienic reasons, but I'm not buying that shit. You know, Alexander the Great conquered the region, and the Greeks weren't down for circumcision at all. The Greeks and the Romans were against the practice to such an extent that they outlawed it, causing the Jews that were living in occupied, the Jews were living under occupation by the Romans and Greeks to modify the extent of this practice, limiting it to the prepuce, which is a part of your penis that you probably don't know about because it's been removed. And Hellenized Jews began stretching their remaining foreskin to extend beyond the glands, making them appear to be uncircumcised. They were stretching the remnant of their foreskin out with some fucking method, technique, weights, maybe, I don't know. It got to be such a problem, though, that the Jewish clergy changed the requirement to call for complete removal of the entire foreskin, because Jews were stretching their foreskin out to make it look like they weren't circumcised so that they could blend in and assimilate into Greco-Roman culture. So, in modernity, it wasn't widely practiced until the 19th century because British and American doctors started recommending it as a way for people to prevent their sons from masturbating. That's what I fucking thought. Louis Cyr, founder of the American Medical Association, was telling people that it was good for general health and hygiene. Subterfuge. It had become an American cultural norm, and immigrants were circumcising their kids to assimilate. In that time, it would seem that males masturbating was a serious pandemic problem because even John Harvey Kellogg came up with a number of bland foods, cornflakes, to name but just one, that was developed in an attempt to curb masturbation. That dude was seriously fucked in the head. All of these motherfuckers that were trying to control male masturbation were doing so by some puritanically, religiously motivated bullshit. Why? Why did these assholes care if young men were jerking off? Because Jesus is watching and he doesn't like it? You know, why does God give a fuck if you jerk off? Okay, you're telling me that there's a being that lives on a cloud somewhere in this universe, this realm that he designed in this dimension, into this scope, and he doesn't like it when you fucking diddle yourself. Seriously? He concerns himself as if he has a penis, the architect of the universe, with whether or not you say naughty words, or if you bone your fist, or you smoke a weed that makes you put this kind of shit into proper perspective, you know? He wants a part of the penis he designed for you removed. Okay. Okay. If you say so. He's gonna make a necklace out of them like your kids do with macaroni and string. Right? He also needs 10% of your income. I hope you prayed for a job that pays 10% more than you absolutely require, you know, so that you can give your money to God. If you're broke after you pay your tithing, they'll give you cheese and bread so you don't starve, though. They're also conspiring with corporations to keep some of your wages low so you're dependent on them. And their wages high so they can afford to buy politicians to legislate based on the impulses of their greed against your need. Oh, fuck out of here. Okay. Anyway, so Britain come to their senses after World War II, and their medical insurance wouldn't cover it based on the risk to benefit ratios. Not worth the risk. And their circumcision rates dropped significantly. This dude I work with, upon discussing this video with him, he told me his dad wasn't circumcised because his grandfather couldn't afford to get the procedure done. He also told me that he had to take his son back to the doctor when he was 3 years old because the circumcision had been botched and it left his kid's dick pointing in directions that weren't exactly ideal for his future. If my coworker friend had any ambitions of being a grandfather. In the 1970s, Australia and Canada, both annexes of the Crown, they cut the bullshit. The United States, as it is now, the United States, Israel, and Muslim-controlled nations are the only cultures in the world that cling to this stupid shit. Why? You won't get a clear, straight answer from anyone with any authority on this issue. The Surgeon General says that the benefits outweigh the risks. The Surgeon General doesn't require a warning sticker on depleted uranium small arms munitions. Then you wonder why we have anti-vaxxers. We have a whole lot of liars in positions of authority regarding medicine and science in the United States. You can't trust people's motives where money is involved. This is a major fucking failure of capitalism. This is also why you have climate change deniers. An ecological holocaust may be in our future because of this shit. We don't trust experts because we feel they're pushing some kind of ulterior agenda. You know, what might motivate an expert in a field to wittingly deny reality and push a ritual or practice, or to bury another one under jargon and speculation? Could it be?
Could it be Satan?
No. How about the almighty fucking dollar? So, the controversy surrounding the practice is pretty obvious. It's a surgical procedure that can have deleterious outcomes. Botched circumcision, no bueno. It's a tiny piece of skin, right? It's a tiny dick, though. It's small when it's removed from an infant dick, but if you were to remove it from an adult, it constitutes about 30% of the surface area of your dingus. There are 20,000 nerve endings in your foreskin. The clitoris has around 8,000, okay? So the average outer and inner skin is about 3 inches with the circumference of 5 inches. That's 15 square inches of dick you don't have as an adult. And I don't know about you, but I might be curious at least to know what 15 extra inches of dick skin might be like. It might be relevant, you know? It might change things. I'm sure it does. The risk to benefit ratio is obviously not in favor of the procedure. It's not reversible, and it's done to a child, a little boy, without their consent. It's obviously a stupid fucking thing to do to a young man. So why do we do it then? Well, most common answer to that question I've heard is so that he looks like his dad. And I primarily hear that from women. That's the reason? Really? Wouldn't you rather your son have a fully functional, intact penis regardless of what it looks like? I mean, who cares what a dick looks like? They're dicks. How much time does anyone really spend looking at dicks? I realize by the sheer amount of dick pics on the internet that it would seem to an outsider like that's all we do is play Fortnite and look at pictures of dicks on our cell phones. But we really don't. The only people that really look at dicks are the dicks that star in these dick pics. Their dicks are legendary only in the mind of the beholder. Now, I've heard women make fun of uncut dicks. Still not a good reason. They only make fun of them because all the other dicks they've seen or come in contact with have been circumcised. If every other, you know what I mean. Whatever. If every other dick was uncircumcised, then they wouldn't judge that as an anomaly. Say, trust me, you don't want to be just like every other dude, unless every other dude has a healthy and reasonable relationship with their body and its parts. There are countless unintended consequences or results that come with circumcision that most people don't even consider. But I'm a paranoiac and I'm skeptical of everything everyone tells me. I'm jaded, I'm cynical. So here's a little list of unintended consequences of the ritual and my suspicion as to why they're implemented. This may be the part of the video where I completely lose you and you write me off as a paranoid, delusional conspiracy nut. So stick around, you might enjoy this. This is where I hand deliver the rotten tomatoes for you to pelt me with. Okay? So we know why they say they practice it. Hygiene. Nah, I think that's bullshit. Blood sacrifice? Yeah, that seems more likely. Why? Superstition? Sure. Look around, man. Look at the weird shit we do. We do all sorts of weird shit. For superstition. You know, putting your hand on the Bible when you're about to lie in court. Shit like that. It's magical thinking. We do it all the time. It becomes so normal for us to just accept shit like that. So we know why they say they practice it. Hygiene. I don't know. I don't really think it matters that much. What people believe doesn't really change the reality of reality all that much. I mean, sure it does, in the sense that chaos magic is real and it works the way psychedelics work, like the sunglasses in the movie They Live do. It makes masturbation less enjoyable, but it does absolutely nothing to decrease its frequency. So let's look at what it actually is. Because I have a penis and couldn't for the life of me figure out what part of my dick they lopped off. It seemed pretty intact to me. It looked like all the other assholes' dicks I would see in gym lockers or wherever dudes that aren't looking to look at dicks see them. So what is it? How does it work? What are the actual consequences, results, outcomes, regardless of the intention behind it? Number one, the intended consequences of masturbation deterrence. Your penis comes designed with a protective sleeve. Protective against what? Chafing and desensitization. If you go to a sex toy store, there will be two distinct products that wouldn't have near the market value that they do in our culture, if not for circumcision. One is the masturbatory sleeve, and the other is lubricant. Neither is necessary for masturbation, but when you are a newly post-pubescent male, you figure out how to moderate your testosterone levels manually. Circumcision doesn't hinder the impulse to masturbate, it just makes it inconvenient. And if we know anything about puritanical, intrusive, authoritarian religion, we know that if they can't control your behavior, they'll still do everything in their power to make sure you suffer some inconvenience if they can. All one need look to for proof is women's clinics and liquor stores in states with heavy church presence of authority and influence. Okay. Number two, it reduces enjoyment of sex by the recipient. The chafing that occurs when men masturbate is now passed on to their partner, presumably the female. Not always. The foreskin stays in place while the penis is stimulated inside of it, so the friction is reduced. Yes, the female produces her own lubricant, but for that to occur, a lot has to be going on hormonally for her. And let's face it, men don't know what the hell we're doing, by and large because we don't talk about what we don't know about. It's almost as if the authority class of these cultures don't want young men masturbating and aren't particularly concerned with the sexual enjoyment of the receiving partner in copulation or fornication. Okay, so number three. It causes trauma association to sex. Another unintended consequence is that trauma affects the brain in very young human beings. Sometimes trauma can be passed down from parents and grandparents, and not just in the human species, epigenetically. Psychologically, we associate subconsciously. Okay? How do you suppose sexual trauma manifests itself in the subconscious minds of young men who are sexually traumatized at birth or 8 days into their life in a culture largely informed by war and slavery? You see what I mean? Do you suppose that might contribute to some kind of pathological masculinity? Maybe, possibly. Number 4, it causes aggressiveness in males. Maybe it makes males more sexually aggressive. That might explain why American porn is so aggressive and even violent. Rape is a tactic of warfare, whether it's officially acknowledged or not. It just is, and it's always been. Okay? Google U.S. prison base Okinawa rape incident. Dude, you'll get a lot of shit. You'll get a lot of references to our soldiers raping, terrorizing the women of basically every country that we have a military base in, which is about 153 countries. So that's problematic. That's not doing us any favors in our public reputation. Okay, that's what they do. That's what England was doing when they were the world empire. It's part of the rape culture that the right wing doesn't want to acknowledge we have, because we have laws against rape, laws that are seldom enforced. You know, hashtag Me Too is a farce, right? Hashtag Me Too is a symptom of clown world. We know this, and we've known this for a long time. All through history, women and children were considered the spoils of war, and to the victors go the spoils. You think maybe the Bible had a hand in perpetuating that attitude in Western culture? Seems plausible to me. Also, young men that don't masturbate are more violent and aggressive. You know, these neo-Nazis, these Proud Boys, this fucking Gavin McGinnis motherfucker who's telling these kids not to jerk off with his no fap campaign. Why? So their street thugs will be more aggressive and violent while they're terrorizing minorities. Testosterone makes men want to kill and fuck. Great impulses to have in a darker age when survival was conquest, but today those are impulses that psychopaths have trouble controlling. These rituals that promote those impulses, we're having a hard time in letting go of. Fucking roid rage. That's what you're gonna get, young men. Number 5. It's done to children involuntarily because it wouldn't be done voluntarily to adults. I took a poll in my office. Of the 6 guys I work with, I asked them if they weren't circumcised as a child, would they go ahead and get circumcised as an adult? Not one single dude I asked said they would. I actually know a dude who was circumcised as an adult, and it was because a girl told him his dick was freakish and weird looking. I suspect that's why they do it at birth or shortly after, because very few men would choose to have the surgery done as an adult, and that's precisely why it's wrong to do it to children. They have no choice in the matter. And that brings us to number 6. Circumcision distinguishes Jews from Gentiles. It distinguishes the elite from the slave, however one's status is applied. It's a marker, whether it's God looking at your dick to determine if you're one of his chosen people, or if it's the Pharaoh trying to figure out if he has to pay you when he makes you go work in the mine. I don't know what kind of omnipotent God Yahweh is, if he has to know which kids to murder by whether they have lamb blood painted on their door, or if he can't tell his own chosen people from his lesser creations without looking at their schmuck. Okay? So, it makes sense that America practices this ritual, being that in our entire, albeit short history as a nation, we've been at war 90% of our existence. We don't know what we do without war. It's kind of an evil business model, if you ask me. It's just one of these cultural things that we do without questioning. We don't ask ourselves why we do this shit. We do it because everyone else is doing it. We're a species that just kind of follows along and goes along to get along. And that's precisely how shit like the Holocaust happens. You know, we don't question authority or think for ourselves. Now, if we understand causes and effects, we might understand why America is so fucked up. We're all addicted to drugs. We're violent, misogynistic, and racist. And xenophobic. We're pretty much agoraphobic. We're afraid of everything. We call ourselves the free and the brave, but come on, man. Come on. We aren't free. We sure as fuck haven't been brave for the better part of a century. We don't stand up for what's right. We don't give a fuck about the truth and justice if it causes us even the slightest of inconvenience. Now, here comes the "if you hate America so much, just leave" comments. No, motherfucker, I don't hate America. I think we can do a lot better to actually live up to the ideals and principles that we tell ourselves we are. We used to be the place everyone wanted to be. You know, that everyone wanted to emulate, the shining city on the hill. It wasn't always just bullshit. And that's what Trump was trying to appeal to. He just doesn't know enough about our history or who we actually are to make a coherent point or a realistic run toward it. So, in closing, should you circumcise your sons? I don't think it's a good idea. What about if you're Jewish? Yeah, I still don't think it's a great idea to permanently alter a little kid's body without their consent. You know, they aren't property. Their body sure as hell isn't our property. Now, if you had a son and you had him circumcised, don't think you're a monster in my view. Like I said, unless it's a botched circumcision, it doesn't really affect straight men that much. They're just going to have to be a little more conscientious with their partners, which is never a bad thing. You know, if they're informed enough to do that. The standard is such that it won't negatively affect them anyway. Psychologically, they may have to do some introspection and really examine where their aggression may be coming from. You know, look deeply at why they hold the views they do about women and authority and culture and their sense of belonging to a community. So what's the takeaway? To cut or not to cut? I can't get behind it. I don't think it's necessary. I think it's a ritual that no longer has any God worth offering blood to. I think it's an antiquated practice for a time that no longer has any beneficial, if it ever did, value. It no longer serves us. When I was a child, I thought as a child, I spake as a child, but when I became a man, I put away such childish things. It kind of works in the reverse as well. You know, when I was a man, I thought as a man, I spake as a man. But when I transcended duality, polarity, I put away such manly, singular things. So what do you think? Circumcision tantamount to male genital mutilation or female genital mutilation? Can you see any glaring holes in my hypothesis? Do you have any strong feelings either way on the subject? You know, I know some people do. I've been unfriended by women that find my views on this subject hateful and anti-Semitic. It's a touchy subject for some people. I understand that. People's religions are kind of important parts of their identities. People take criticism of their religion personally. They take personal offense. You know, it's not my intention to offend. I'm generally Team Hebrew when it comes to social issues. I don't equate Zionism with Judaism. Some Jews find that view to be anti-Semitic. Believe me, I'm conscious of the sensitive nature of this issue. I'm all about freedom of religion and expression. I'm just thinking about what choice young American men have. I think it's time for our culture to evolve to the level that our consciousness can complement. You know, don't think I think the practice should be made illegal. Just that our customs should be re-examined from time to time. And that's all. And that's pretty much all I have to say about it, you know. So, I want to say thank you for your support. And until next week, this is Rhythm Method Air and KT signing off. Over and out.